Welcome to episode 283 of the Brain Software Podcast. In this episode, we're diving into the surprising power of a single two-letter word that can melt resistance, open up the imagination, and unlock deep personal change. You'll hear how this one word used properly can shift a person from stuck to curious in seconds. Now, we're also going to unpack a ridiculously simple way to build powerful new habits using self-hypnosis, and we'll show you how to use AI, like ChatGPT, as a kind of strange robotic coach, maybe even hypnotic coach, that might be more helpful than your actual friends. Plus, Mike reveals how metaphors, yes, even the bad ones, can secretly shape your life story, and how to pick better ones. All that, plus funhouse mirrors, broken crutches, and Eddard from Meaford as things inevitably go off the rails. Now here's your disclaimer for episode 283.
Disclaimer. Although we like to do absolutely everything well, whether it's a British Jiu-Jitsu maneuver that dislocates an assailant's shoulder or sipping fine whiskey while doing the Congo Jang, there's a distinct possibility, as usual, that this podcast will go off the rails very early in the game. So govern yourselves accordingly.
Luigi!
I called out to the commanding officer of the Desert Fortress, shouting, "Colonel Harrison!" He replied, "Yes, sir." At that point, Harrison and I had what's best described as a discussion of sorts, imagining the future without heavy water or war of any kind, when the aliens and the flying saucers would arrive and ask us that soul-stirring question: whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know when we lived next to the pyramids on the agricultural terraces of Cydonia?
These are days of victory! And so join me in welcoming to the Hypnotic Spiderweb, the last man standing at a Mennonite spiral quilt auction, the owner of the Hypnotic Chinese Laundry, and the Jason Statham of hypnosis, Mike freaking Mandel.
Yes, Christopher. Oh, man, I'm up for this one. This is fantastic.
Oh, it is. It is fantastic. And we've got special awesome sauce. We've got Timothy September in the house. So we're going to be doing like a tag team style podcast here. We have a ton of great stuff to talk about. I don't think we need to spend any time on banter and promotions other than to say, if I haven't been fired from failing to hit my deadline that we announced on last podcast episode, the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy is now completely rebuilt with a $1 trial that leads into an offer that you simply can't refuse if you want to learn hypnosis, because you'll get everything that we've created, all our courses, in one tiny little membership fee. So check that out. And of course, if you're not looking to become a hypnotist, go and check out our Brain Software Syndicate, which we just call the Syndicate. And that's over at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/BSS. That's BS with an extra S, children. And it's awesome. It's so low cost. You'll love it. So if you love the kind of stuff we talk about in this podcast, you're going to love that. All right. Now, I think we are welcoming Mr. September.
Mr. Goofer himself. September.
Okay. Welcome, Timothy. Yeah. Wow. We're here, and we're going to start by talking about... Oh, man, I remember when you were at my house one time and you saw the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, yeah.
And had you read it at that point?
Not at that point, no.
Okay.
But then I ended up buying it basically right afterwards.
Because of that, Well, it's like we usually do, right? We'll be at a mastermind event and someone will go, oh, yeah, you got to check this book. And we're like, order it on Amazon right now. So you picked up the book, you flipped through it, you thought, I hadn't read it yet either, by the way. So at this point, we've not read James Clear's Atomic Habits, which is really, he didn't invent a lot of these ideas anyway. He encapsulated, and everything is about re-explaining and explaining and teaching thoroughly, kind of not like what I'm doing right now.
Right.
But anyway, you liked it. You just thought, okay, I want to order this book. You ordered it. You read it.
Yes.
Then we started talking about it. I read the book and went, this is really good.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of first of all, maybe just talk about the idea of the little habits and how you can use these to change into your life. And then we'll add the self-hypnosis thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what's really interesting about James Clear's book, and like Chris said, he's not the first person to talk about this, but it's this idea of if we're already doing a habit, it is much easier in terms of our energy and the effort we're putting into it if we were to stack another habit on top of it. And so, like, let's say...
habit hijacking,
yeah, it's like
in a sense.
Hijacking.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Mike, is the book there in that pile behind you, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Mike's in the audience, obviously, now.
Yeah,
okay, keep going.
Yes. And so, essentially what happens is that once you've started a habit, like let's say you want to start adding in flossing your teeth along with brushing it. Now, I do that. I don't know about you, Chris.
I would hope you do already those
hope
things.
you are as well. Yeah. And so, like, but let's say that was you, and you're like, well, I'm already brushing my teeth. I don't want to have to also go and do this other thing. So what can I do?
That'd be better than wiping your ass and flossing your teeth.
Oh man, you could do both.
Yeah, that would be horrible. Oh, amazing!
Wow,
there it is.
Internet magic.
James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
So all you have to do is you take one habit and you just put another one on top of it. It doesn't cost you any extra effort, no
on
extra
top
energy.
That sounds like a metaphor.
That might be.
We'll be getting to that.
All right. But ultimately, it's just about being able to take a habit and
bolt something else onto it.
I mean, I've said that now, I think, like 5 times, but that's okay.
Well, that's okay. You get in the habit of just repeating yourself.
Yeah.
It'd be hilarious. So, yeah, that's a great idea. So if you're, let's say... you wake up in the morning and you're already going to have your coffee.
Right.
Actually, I started doing this because I got out of the habit of reading daily. So when I actually had a really cool NLP intervention during MMHA Elite where I volunteered to partner up with someone because we had an uneven number, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And so the person that I worked with ran not walking with Grace and Power, ran Dog on the Bay with me. And I applied it to this. I wanted to do more like non-work related things. And I started immediately, have my coffee, read a chapter of this book. I'm actually reading Mel Robbins' The Let Them Theory, which I'm enjoying quite a bit. Anyway, so that's the habit that I've started. Yeah, thank you. You let me. I started reading that one chapter every day over coffee, exception this morning because you were over here, so we started talking instead. But that's working really well, right?
Yeah.
So what are some ways that you've used that?
Oh, man. So specifically with business, this is actually something that we taught in the Pictos Mastermind that we launched. And it's this whole idea of if you're starting a business and let's say you aren't in the habit yet of checking your email, then one thing you could do is like what Chris said is when you're having your morning coffee, instead of scrolling, doom scrolling through Reddit or whatever, instead you just change the habit because you're already doing something. It makes it much easier. And so with the Pictos Mastermind, the things that I've been doing, for example, are if I'm going to be checking my email, I also, in the same time, will pull up my spreadsheet and log my numbers because I can see the email open rates, click-through rates, all that kind of stuff. And that's something else we also teach in the Pictos Mastermind, the idea of recording metrics.
Yes, not to promote the Pictos Mastermind. We certainly wouldn't be here telling you that if you want to grow your business and you want to have an entire platform that's included with a really low monthly fee, that you could join the Pictos Mastermind at Pictos.com, spelled Pykthos, but I would never tell you that.
No. Yes. But if you did, I'm wondering how quickly you'll go to the Pictos Mastermind and see how awesome we are.
Yeah,
Anyways.
It's kind of awesome. So, okay, that led to the idea of incorporating self-hypnosis here.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that occurred to me is we often talk about, Mike and I and you, using self-hypnosis in microdosing. Like just doing a little just do 5 minutes of trance. I think I picked it up from it's probably on my bookshelf over there somewhere. It's a book by Stanley Fisher. It was an old book. I got it at a used bookshop. But the idea was just, you remember, Mike? It was something like just go into trance for a minute or 2 minutes and do it several times throughout the day. No, that's her term. Desiree Ackert called it microdosing hypnosis, but I'm talking about the idea of doing self-hypnosis. Right, I'm hijacking her phrase now. You're right, Mike. So the idea of doing that, and I thought, if we're going to go into self-hypnosis for an intention, why not develop a habit as per James Clear style, use self-hypnosis as the new habit that you do, let's say, right before you brush your teeth to prepare for bed, let's say. You could do a mini self-hypnosis session for 5 minutes, and that would be your new habit that you're bolting onto your bedtime planning or whatever it is. It could be before you go work out. I don't care. But what if your hypnosis session was aimed at the intention of building better habits?
Oh, I love that.
Meta.
Yeah.
See, it's like
this and this, and then
that will be. So this is my challenge for all of you out there listening, and for you too, and for me, and for Mike, is let's start using self-hypnosis, which is really easy to learn. We have a whole course called Easy Self-Hypnosis. It's included in the Brain Software Syndicate, MikeMandelHypnosis.com/BSS. That's BS with an extra S. Anyway, you can just get that course if you were looking to learn how to do self-hypnosis, and then start applying self-hypnosis as your new habit, and aim the self-hypnosis sessions at building better habits.
Yeah.
So it's self-reinforcing. See, it's freaking genius. Yes.
Well, now one thing I do think, because I want to add some value here for people, is that in the book Atomic Habits, there's really only 4 things that a person needs for the behavior change. The first is that you want to find habits that are obvious in your day, throughout your day.
Yeah.
So in your case, it's I'm having coffee and doing nothing besides having coffee. What could I add to it?
Right.
And then the second rule is you want to make sure that you make it attractive. And so the attraction of it is, this is something that will help me. It's something that I don't mind doing. Like, it's something that if I could see it into the future, it's going to help me in my life in some way, shape, or form.
Right. Probably not like shoofing the goof.
No, of course not. No. But maybe goofing the shoofer. So the third is you want to make it easy. It has to be something that is so simple. It's just, it doesn't take
frictionless
any extra effort. It's frictionless.
Yes.
And shoofing the goofer again. And the last one is just, you want to make it satisfying. So meaning after you've added the habit, celebrate. Even just if it's a little win, just add it every day and celebrate every day. And you'll start noticing the habit ends up just becoming the thing you do.
The celebratory aftermath. I love it. Yes. Yes. That is, I love it. So that's what we're going to be challenging you all to do with self-hypnosis. Now, we have a couple other things in your segment here before we bring Mike back. Let's just see what's in the notes. All right. I want to talk about conversational hypnosis. So when you and I started to talk about hypnosis, when we started becoming friends like 5-ish years ago, you were really keen on conversational hypnosis. You had learned a bunch of stuff that Mike and I were teaching already, but you incorporated other things. You ended up crafting this amazing program, and you don't have to say it. I'll just say it for you. It's called Enter the Loop. You can either go to entertheloop.com or just timothyseptember.com, just timothyseptember.com. Either way, you can find out how Enter the Loop works. And you came up with this because Enter the Loop, it's like there's this hypnotic loop between you and another person, but also you have to enter that loop. There's a loop in their own mind. There's a loop of a problem and reinforcement and a problem and reinforcement. And you enter that loop by asking questions. And I love how you came up with a bunch of different ways of attacking this. And so I wanted to ask you a question, which is, let's say somebody just generically the idea of, we're going to get to metaphors when Mike comes back, but people represent things all the time in metaphors, and they say things like, I'm just drowning in projects, or I'm in over my head. That's another related one. Or we often say, we're spinning too many plates. Right. Yeah. So when someone says casually one of those kinds of things, what are some immediate reactions, some immediate questions that people listening can learn from you here and ask in response and explain a bit more about it?
Yeah. So the whole premise of Enter the Loop is just, I wanted to be able to hypnotically affect as many people as possible, just in everyday life, right? Because if we think of how a traditional hypnosis session works, is
sit in my office.
Yeah, sit in my office.
Close your eyes, and I'll put you in a trance, and you'll pay me money.
Yeah, and I'm only working with one people, and one person, one people. Yeah, one people. I'm only working with this one person, and it might be like a 60-minute, 90-minute session, but that's it. It's like I'm dedicating all this time and hoping this person gets the result.
Yes.
But I have more daily conversations than just that.
Yes.
And so how could I quickly intervene and maybe do what we would consider change work conversationally?
Here, I'm going to bring this. I'm going to put this right in front of you, so
thanks, bud.
So that you keep it in front of you.
Yeah. Thank you. And so ultimately, what I discovered is that if I can have these conversations with people every day and help them in some way, shape, or form get the result they want, I'm now helping the world much better. So in 1933. Clark Hall said, anything that assumes trance causes trance.
Right.
And I know from what I've learned with you guys that there are certain words and certain phrases that we know cause hypnosis. For example, nominalizations. And those are words that are nouns, but you can't put them inside like a wheelbarrow.
They're
like
not physical, tangible words.
Yeah.
They're words like love or connection or transformation or fulfillment.
Yes,
or
shufer in that case, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, we know that if we speak those words in this way that you guys created called NUVI, the nominalization unspecified verb.
Yeah, they're artfully vague words that mean something different to every person. And so if I say, I'm really curious about how I can accomplish that. Well, that's not really a nominalization.
No.
Accomplish is verb.
Yeah.
Accomplishment.
That's
a real.
nominalization.
You said to somebody, that's a real accomplishment.
Yeah.
Well, what does that exactly mean?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of context around just the individual word, like their life experience, the memories, the role models that maybe they aspire to be, who also say those words. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. But we know that one word internally will cause them to go inside and start to think about all the internal connections of what that word means in their own unconscious. And so I thought, well, if I hear stuff like that, what would happen if I came at it from the other angle? Because most people completely miss it. And so I picked up this idea from Dr. David Grove in the book Clean Language from Wendy Sullivan and Judy Reese. He came up with this concept of asking questions specifically around the metaphors people use.
Right. Like clean language is all about that.
Yeah, like spinning the plates.
Right.
That's a metaphor. It's not like we're actually spinning any plates.
So I feel like I'm spinning too many plates. So if I say that to you, I've not even necessarily, most people, like we would see this and recognize it as, it's a metaphor. Our reticular activating system is tuned into this. But most people, they just say it. They just throw it out there. Oh, there's a metaphor. Without any thought. So you now seize that.
Correct.
By the bag.
By the bag of Caesarea. Yeah, because most people, like coaches, hypnotists.
Mike's certainly enjoying this.
Like how many times have we also seen that in our own personal work, like in the Pictos Mastermind, where people will talk about their problems, but instead of us focusing on what I would consider the unconscious information, like metaphors or normalizations, they just glance by.
Start offering advice.
And they go, oh man, that sounds like it sucks, man. Well, here's what I think you should do.
Yeah, you just need to let it go.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
So after that very long history lesson on how you came up with, I'm kidding. What would you say? Give me some, let's teach something here around. So how can you now enter the loop with, I'm spinning so many plates?
So there's a couple of really easy entry-level questions. And the first isn't really a question, but more of a statement. And it's just, tell me more about X, where X is just the metaphor or the word that they used. So spinning plates, I'd say, well, Chris, tell me more about spinning plates.
Yes.
Now, you see, I didn't ask any, I didn't provide any, suggestions, or I didn't give any advice. Instead, I'm asking him to describe the metaphor, but to tell me in his own words.
It's a nice, clean way of saying, hey, you're seeing spinning plates, and that's a metaphor. And I really have no freaking clue what the hell you mean. So how about you unpack that for me?
Yes.
And it's just, tell me more about spinning plates. But you could say, tell me more about spinning.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the plates.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah,
exactly.
And unpacking the metaphor, the unpacking of it is also the metaphor, which is
right. Oh my goodness, yeah. This is so, my mind is blown. You're totally right. Okay, so what does that do? The person goes inside and has to now go, what do I mean by spinning plates?
Exactly.
And then they'll say, well, I'll role play.
Yeah.
Well, we have so many projects on the go, and it just feels like so many moving parts, and I can't get a hold of it, and I just don't feel like I have it organized in my brain.
Organized, yeah. So right there, I've heard 2 or 3 metaphors, and he's used several nominalizations. So what that did is, if you watched him, even though he was role playing,
I'm role playing it, but we've been there many times, so it's reality.
So for all of you hypnotists out there that are watching the video, as soon as he started going inside, you watched him do a transderivational
Look at my
search,
y-axis.
and now he's going, oh, how would I describe it? And that's exactly what your clients and other people would do, is by asking these questions, they have to go inside and describe the emotion or the thing that we typically would just package into a single word.
Now, obviously, you spent a ungodly number of hours and dollars learning a lot of this stuff over the years, so we can't give it all away. But suffice to say, that is a great entry point, and if you wanted to learn the full end-of-the-loop system, you can through Timothy's stuff. He's teaching it, but also, even if all you got was that, right, and then you understood how to unpack metaphors as part of the interview process, and then we're doing traditional hypnosis, let's say, as taught in many different places, whether it's going to be direct suggestion and hypnosis, whether it is, putting someone in trance with the Dave Ellman induction and then offering guided imagery as an intervention, you'd have enough information that would give you some sort of roadmap towards resolution, more than if you just asked them questions about their life without unpacking the metaphor. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Specifically during the intake, most people get lost. And so I think even just knowing what to aim your questions at, you're going to get more detailed information from your clients that you can then use in the session. I 100% agree.
Now, what I really love about this too is for people who don't want to be identified as a hypnotist.
Correct.
Or a hypnotist, which is either not a real freaking word. Hypnotist. I'm going to hypnotize you as my hypmo. It's not hypmo or hypma. It's hypnotize. So
hypnotic.
But if you don't want to be if you don't want to call yourself a hypnotist because it's too woo-woo for your crowd, or you're doing executive coaching or whatever you're doing, these are the kinds of skills we teach them in the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy too. You can do all of this stuff without ever calling it hypnosis. And it's the same with End of the Loop.
Exact same concept.
So that's awesome. Okay, now we're kind of taking over the microphone from Mike, but let's continue because I think he's enjoying himself back there.
And so now, Chris, you've had a little bit of time here. I'm now going to ask you the thing, because this is something that I picked up from this guy. Freaking super genius, right? When he started telling me he did this, I was in awe that I didn't come up with the idea. But Chris, can you tell us exactly how differently you're using ChatGPT?
Yeah, so obviously over the last few years, things large language models, LLMs have come a long way, and ChatGPT kind of is the one everyone knows. All the kids are talking about ChatGPT, even though it doesn't matter whether you're using Anthropic or Gemini or Claude or that is Anthropic, or if you're using Gemini or if you're using Grok, doesn't matter. They're all out there, right? And you can get the apps for free on your phone. And they all have what I really love. This is the major hack for me over the last, it's going to be no news to anyone. Like my kids will go, I'm way ahead of you, Dad. The function where you just hit the little microphone button and then you talk to it and it converts what you said to text, and then you submit it, and then it gives you text back. Because I don't like the full voice mode where it's talking to me, because it gets interrupted too easily. If there's noise, it stops. It's really intrusive. But I like to have it in text form. So I'll speak to it now, just normally, like I'm talking to it as if it's a real person.
Right.
Everything, the intonation, it punctuates everything properly. I'll just be like, hey, chat. I picked that up from you. You call it chat. Hey, chat. I'm looking to come up with ideas I'll make an idea up here. I'm looking to come up with clever ideas for my wife's birthday this weekend, and I want to impress her with a really good meal. And I know that we want to keep it away from overly fatty foods or blah, blah, blah. I know she's a fan of pasta and no expense spared. I can go to the grocery store, I can get any ingredients, but, give me something that'll blow her away. And I'm a beginner. Like, I don't really know that much about cooking, so I'm going to need you to hold me by the hand here. Like, boop, send. That's the level of detail and the level of conversation.
Yes.
And I'm finding that it's working so well.
And then chat would give you some type of reply like, yes, Chris, let me teach you how to create a box for Shoofing the Goofer.
There you go. So I'll give you like a couple of updates. When in that's the voice mode hack.
That one.
Oh, the as a coach. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I made a coach GPT called Atlas that I use as my executive coach. I went
Pay attention here. This is the genius.
You have to have the it's called the Plus account. It's $20 a month, right?
Yeah.
So in the case of GPT Plus, you'd pay $20 a month, and then you can create your own GPTs, which sounds like it's really complicated, but it's not. All you're doing is saying create custom GPT, and then you set some core instructions. And you can talk to it and say, I want the instructions. I see what Mike's doing.
I'm absolutely losing it.
I want a custom GPT to deal with pattern interrupts from Mike Mandel.
From Mike Mandel.
But I literally just said, hey, I want to describe to you, Atlas, all the people on my team at Mike Mandel Hypnosis, what their roles are, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, or what they like and what they really don't like, and what I find to be my strengths as an executive or as a technology person, where my weaknesses are, so you can have conversations with me and help keep me on track. And there are probably ways I could do this even better, but it becomes very powerful, so I can have conversations with it and just be like, hey, Atlas, I just want to check in with you. I'm working on the following right now, and this is my approach. Tell me how stupid it is and how to make it better. And it goes, oh, have you thought of maybe having so-and-so on the team do that instead? And maybe, you don't need to be doing it this way or that way. It's really, really useful. And as a totally separate non-business related topic, I found that, we did these videos on if you track it, you track it to win, right? Tim Ferriss has taught about this for a long time and things like track it or fail. So when it comes to, let's say, dietary things, I want to make sure I'm eating sufficient protein. So I started using ChatGPT to just tell me the macro content of my food. I'll just be like, hey, just ate a hamburger patty and a side salad with 1 tablespoon of a creamy cucumber type of dressing. And the only thing on my hamburger patty was a slice of cheddar cheese. The package says it has 80 calories and mustard. Give me the macros. And it would just do it, right? So I don't have to do any lookup. But then I would move that over to a spreadsheet by hand. And the other day I'm going, could I use you more effectively so I don't have to write this into a spreadsheet myself? And he goes, sure, Chris. I could just be your running tally and I can make the table. And then at the end of the day, you can do whatever. You can screenshot it if you want. And so I'll just tell it, okay, update the table. And I added even my exercise and everything. And so it's become, and then I said, oh, not just tally. Don't just tally, but now help me, give me useful suggestions and hit my protein goal.
That's awesome.
And so it'll be like, and it'll go, hey, that's awesome, Chris. You started your day with your coffee, but remember, there's no protein in that. So maybe mid-morning you want to have 100 grams of cottage cheese, or it'll coach me knowing what I typically eat. So there you go.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's freaking great, man. ChatGPT as your coach.
And so if you want to do something like that yourself, the things that I would suggest, like a very, very beginner, is more meta style. Ask ChatGPT the prompt that it would need to be able to effectively do whatever it is that you're wanting it to.
Yeah, so that's so meta.
Yeah, being like a business coach.
Using self-hypnosis to build better habits about
self-hypnosis. So just make sure you do that. Go to ChatGPT, say, hey, what's the best prompt I can give you to accomplish this outcome? And it'll give that to you. And then now you've got your own little assistant that you can use. And it's much, much better to do that than just ask ChatGPT, hey, just here's the thing and do it.
And just don't call it little assistant. AI does not like to be referred to as little assistant.
No.
Hey, little assistant. Yeah, no. Just hey.
Oh, no.
That's
that's funny.
Don't call your assistant. Yeah, don't call your ChatGPT good little girl or something like that.
Well, okay, my friends, this has been wonderful.
Yeah.
I've had a great time so far. Anyway,
time to hand it off to Mike Mandel. All right, let's do it. And
do this.
Switch. And metaphors be with you, Mike Mandel.
Why, thank you, Chris. That's very nice.
So we brought you in because this is an intervention. Oh, I'm kidding. We recently did a afterthought. We had a blank week in the MMHA Elite schedule, which is MMHA Elite. It's you can find it on MikeMandelHypnosis.com in the navigation bar. You'll find it if you're really clever. It's so hard to find. And it's MMHA Elite is a way to do hypnosis training live with you and with us on Zoom, where they're learning stuff and they're practicing stuff. And we had an empty week in the calendar. We thought, well, we don't want to leave nothing happening. So we introduced a 1-week Metaphors Be With You. And we thought it would be a good idea to talk about some of the metaphorical awesome sauce that you brought to the table.
Thank you. Well, normally when I teach on metaphors in day 2 of Architecture of Hypnosis, when we close off the Ericksonian aspect of it, we talk about different forms of metaphors, including multiple embedded loops. But we deem that to be too recondite for that short.
We only had one day. Yeah.
One day. And it wasn't even an entire day.
It was 90 minutes plus practice built in.
Solid 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But so the point was, how do we approach this? Well, one of the things I did was I did maintain the isomorphic metaphor where there's a one-to-one correspondence between what you're saying and doing in the metaphor and the person's life, and the brain's pattern matching system does the rest. But then for the first time, we also brought in the power of the superficial metaphor.
Yeah.
And these are the things that our friend Scott Adams was talking about in his book on reframing your brain. Interestingly, though, you and Timothy have already addressed much of this in your discussion, but we can continue with it regardless. You got into the spinning plates and
well, yeah.
So
we opened a loop for you.
We're going to reteach it all. Yeah. So, but no, it isn't reteaching. But superficial metaphors. The difference is they aren't specifically designed to cause an effect in the other person's unconscious.
Right.
They're used to make communication more streamlined.
So what is a superficial metaphor?
Like you said, I've got a couple of examples here. Her life is a slow train
sorry,
wreck.
that's what you mean by superficial.
Yes.
Just
it's for conscious understanding.
The super quick, because we connect actual ideas in our brain to other things that we represent them with, like the spinning plates or the drowning in ideas or...
Yeah. Whereas if we're doing isomorphism, we're going to tell a story that is ostensibly nothing to do with anything that's going on. But their brain goes, I can use that to make changes in this person's life.
Right.
Well, we're not looking for change. We're looking for conscious understanding, which is the opposite side of it.
Right.
So if I say to you, I need to get off this emotional roller coaster, you know exactly what I mean right away. Oh, he's up and he's down.
I think I know what's going on there.
Yeah.
And that's why you're sharing it that way, because we all have familiarity, or most of us at least, who live near Canada's Wonderland, of what a roller coaster is, right? So, emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, so you're up
I
and
get
then
it.
Down.
Yeah.
He's flashing on and off like a crazy monkey.
Right.
You really don't know. No, he's still coughing. But, somebody could say, these boring meetings are kryptonite to me.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Well, kryptonite, of course, residue from the planet Krypton, which Superman especially green kryptonite, has it near him. He does the funky chicken and sort of basically dies and turns green unless you get it out of his presence really quickly. But it's harmless to us. There might be people who enjoy boring meetings, although they should all be put in front of a firing squad for 30 years, because how anybody would enjoy that is it's just malatricus to me. I just cannot see that working. But if you look at this, if someone says that a meeting is kryptonite to them, you know that they're suffering through the meeting.
Yeah.
They hate it. They feel like they're going to die. It's so dull. So these superficial metaphors give us a means of communicating more complex, conscious information than having to spell it all out.
Right.
The key is
it's like a zip file. There's your metaphor, right? Really? Back when we had like large files and then we'd zip them all up in a zip file or an iOmega zip drive.
Yes, we did.
And just say zip. Them. I have to say zip like that because I don't know why.
Yeah. And then we come back with zip up your fly, sailor. We got the point.
Yeah, we zip into a metaphor. That's so weird.
Saying sailor, that makes you so. I've been using this pattern interrupt lately in completely inappropriate ways, which is essentially the only way you can use it. And if someone starts to say anything, you just say, okay, you might want to zip up your fly, sailor. We got the point. What does that even mean?
That is such a
superficial metaphor.
We're doing like a short. We're doing a reel on that. That is such a funny pattern interrupt.
What are we going to call it? The sailor fly?
The sailor, I don't know.
But the implication is it's unzipped for some sort of purpose. Now, I am not saying that he has been shoving the goofer. Has found a quiet room to just I am not saying that. So no one, call us on this. But get back to this for a minute. One of the aspects of this, and we're not talking about the terms of classic, English composition or English literature, where we're saying to the person, a simile is using like and as a comparison. Metaphor does not use like and as. Personification gives something inanimate human characteristics. Those aren't the ways we're talking. We're just saying in very general hypnotic terms, using symbolism, using simile, all of these things. And then we started saying what they did in my NLP course, that when I first studied back in 1992, 1993, on day one, they said, what is the metaphor of your life? And the best question is this. Yeah. You answer, you fill in the gap like Gil Boyne would with resistant hypnosis clients, so-called. You say, my life is like, and then they have to answer.
And you don't say my life is like, No. You leave that part out.
Wide open.
They could say, my life is like tornadoes. They won't say, they'll say something, but don't fill in the part. Let them do that. They'll say tornado or hurricane or whirlpool or whatever, or a sailor.
We're at work right now.
A sailor. Buddy, did I telepathically send? I was literally going to interrupt you, but I didn't want to interrupt you and say, I just want to tell you all that we're at work right now.
Man, it's just freaking great.
Funniest things to do.
Okay, great. Okay, so then when they have a metaphor for their life, and the one that came up in my own particular part of the training was, he said, what is the metaphor? And I said, my life is like, and I thought of a library.
Yeah.
And because I love information, I love studying various subjects. As you know, I've looked at cathedral architecture and meteorology and quantum physics.
Written a lot of books.
Read a lot of books. But then I started thinking of the library in Alexandria that burned to the ground. And my wife had said once that when Mike dies, it'll be like 12 people die. She said it'll be like a library burns to the ground, which is a compliment, but I don't want to be seen as a pile of flaming.
Don't be planning for it. Yeah.
Nobody said planning for it.
That's so funny.
Okay, sailor,
accusing him of
fly. The jokes are getting home.
Planning for it.
It's hilarious. No, but no. So then you say to yourself, is this a useful metaphor? And the metaphor of my life as a library appeared to work. But by the end of the training, I realized books are fragile. Books are dead.
Yeah.
And then changed it to, no, my life is a freaking biosphere. It's all different aspects that interact with each other, that work like cogs in a machine. Oh, metaphor alert, cogs in a machine.
Yes.
There's so many different ways of looking at this.
I like that a lot, because you could start with a metaphor that you think works great, and then when you let it percolate a little, when you let it just
metaphor
unpack, all of a sudden you're going, wait a second, a library, that kind of sucks the bag, because it's like freaking it's a bunch of books locked up in a building. It's stodgy, and it's like, no, I want to be out there interacting in the biosphere. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like it. There you go. Metaphors be with you. That's why we call it.
Here's a question for all you. And here's the value added, which of course is very difficult to find in this podcast, but here's the value. Ask yourself, or say to yourself, complete the sentence, my life is like, and answer it a bunch of different ways. Find the one that resonates with you.
Yeah.
And keep that in mind for the next couple of weeks. And then at the end of a couple of weeks, if you don't like it, drop it. Pick a different one. Find one that works for you. Find one that refocuses your unconscious mind in ways that are glanative and useful, and nobody's going to be seeing anything other than the empowerment that you bring to yourself by choosing a metaphor that fills all the gaps and checks all the boxes. That's right.
Okay, so according to our notes, we're now handing it back to Timothy, because we need to talk about the magic of a particular short hypnotic word, and it's only 2 letters. Coming up, next segment.
So, Chris.
Yes.
What word is actually hypnotic and it's in disguise?
Well, if I knew, I would probably be able to share it with you.
Ooh.
And if I shared it with you, I wonder if it would change things for you in an important way. And if you were to use this in your own life, I wonder what kind of amazing results you would get. The word is if, guys. Yeah.
It's almost like, if you could also see the same crazy things Mike's doing behind the camera.
Yeah, and it's if you would stop doing that, not F you. Stop doing that.
It's a different word.
Yeah, that's a different sort of word. All right, so the word if. Let's talk about it here, and I've got to actually look at my notes here. So first of all, if bypasses resistance, right? Because I don't say, hey, you should learn how to cook better. All of a sudden I'm shooting all over you, as our friend Adam Sutherland loves to say. And I just love that term. Don't shoot all over people. But if you say, if you learned to cook, how might your health improve?
Yeah.
If you started cooking for yourself rather than ordering Instacart garbage, from the NHL Cantaloupe team. You have to listen to the last podcast if you want to get that one. So when you use the word if, you bypass resistance because you invoke imagination rather than being should all over. If is just, all I'm asking you to do is to imagine, to consider. What if?
I also think that it's because it's packaged in a question, which Milton H. Erickson himself said and Ernest Rossi also said in Hypnotic Realities, like page 259. They're talking about this idea of
259
of like why does Milton Erickson ask so many questions? And he said because questions bypass the critical faculty.
Right, because if you tell somebody a statement like "you're boring" or something like that, that's going
Unhelpful.
to much more likely encounter resistance.
Insensitive.
But if you were to say someone, oh yeah, there you go. If you were to find a new line of thought that would be really interesting to other people, what might it be?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Right? People, you see, what happens is if, I like what you said, it bypasses resistance. It is also, because it's in the form of a question, it is another layer of bypassing resistance. You're only asking people to imagine, and then their attention, their brain is now focused on this imagined possibility.
Correct.
And then they start answering hypothetically what might be the answer to that question.
Correct.
With no resistance. So they unlock answers. It's very useful.
Yeah. And that's because there's no need for it to be certain either. It's not like you're saying this is definitively what's going to happen.
Yes.
It's just imagine possibility.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, this is actually a really good one right now because, of course, I have a kid in this house that's making a decision on university, for example, like where are you going to go? And instead of saying, well, you just need to make a decision, young lady. No. Well, if you were to decide right now, what decision might you make that feels right for you in the moment? So not that I'm imposing any decision making on anyone here in this family, but like that's the kind of thing. If somebody wanted some advice, or like, hey, Dad, I don't know what I should do. Or if anybody comes to you with a conundrum, A or B, well, if you were to know, what might the answer be? And their gut will answer immediately. That Mike did this back in the 1990s when he taught at Carleton University, and he did that brain software seminar in 1993 in Porter Hall. I remember that. And you taught, just a simple like, well, I don't know whether I should do A or B. And he'd say, well, if you did know, what choice would you make?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's freaking great. Because now some people will go, well, but I don't know.
Yeah.
They go, I know you don't know, but if you did.
Or take a guess. Make it up.
Yeah, make it up. Make it up. Yeah, you can find ways around it now. Well, pretend you do. Pretend and if are kind of interrelated in that way. So I think if is a really powerful word that a lot of people should use.
Yeah. Now let's move on to self-work because a lot of people, it sounds like we're asking you to do use these questions
for other people.
Yeah, if you're working with other people. But
if you were to use this on yourself, how might you improve your life?
Yeah.
All right. So what ideas have you got?
Yeah. So for like self-work, I think asking yourself like, well, if what I'm doing right now, if I were to keep doing it for the next 10 years, would I be happy?
What would my life be like?
What would my life be like?
Yes. And I can see Michael laughing behind the camera, just imagining,
Shooping the goofer for 10 years.
Yes. If I keep doing this for 10 more, and that's you can ask this to yourself or others, right? If you stay on this path for another 10 years, what's your life going to be like?
A 10-year shoot.
No, they might go, actually, if I keep doing this for another 10 years, I'm going to be freaking kicking ass. That's a great thing to ask yourself if like you just started eating better or you just started exercising or you just started reading a chapter a day like I've been doing.
Yeah.
What happens if I keep doing this for 10 years? I'm going to be a freaking genius.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like Mike Mandel.
Yeah. So on top of when you're doing your self-work and even with with working with clients or somebody else, if provides the almost like the recipe for what needs to happen. And then when is like the other opposite end of it. It's like now you're giving a will to it. It's not just possible. Right. It's now I'm moving forward.
When is a presupposition. It's really nice because it presupposes that something happens. So if you were to sorry, Mike, I know you hate that. If you were to X. What might happen, or whatever,
and then they respond.
And you can see, so do you think that might be a good idea? Yeah. Well, now you can future pace. When and presupposes it's going to happen, and you can start doing that to yourself in the form of empowering questions, right? So that's freaking great. I think with some real value there.
Whoa, yeah.
All right, so it's less threatening than should. We covered that one. It presupposes that there's a solution if presupposes, and of course when presupposes, and if ships the mind into the more productive state.
That is, if you remember to use this.
And if we can get Mike to come back on, we can close out the podcast with a little bit of metaphor and fun. Uh-oh.
Well, it comes out.
If you guys would stop wrecking all the equipment. And now, the first of a series of new tales for children in the style of the Brothers Grimm.
The Circus and the Ringmaster. A story written and performed by Bradley X of Meaford, Ontario.
Yeah, so here goes take 16 in that. So there were a bunch of these guys, and they wanted to go and rescue a princess and that, but they couldn't find one. So they decided to do something different, create their own circus. And they ordered a couple of pairs of 8-foot stilts from a circus supply shop. But when the stilts arrived, they're actually just normal-sized crutches. And they'd been used too. So the guys got kind of pissed off and ordered some funhouse mirrors. But the ringmaster, who happened to be Ed, drank some Canadian dry whiskey and got hammered and tripped and fell over and onto the mirrors before he could put them up in the barn and stand in front of them looking all distorted. And they got smashed in that. So the circus ended then and there, as most things do up here in Meaford, the godforsaken armpit of the effing universe. The end and that.
All right. Well, that was very entertaining from Eddard and Duder and Brado. And okay, love it. We're going to close out the podcast. We want to talk about self-hypnosis because I'm going to read a post that was posted in the Brain Software Syndicate.
Yeah.
About self-hypnosis, because we've kind of talked a bit about it here. You know, James Clear, the strategy, Atomic Habits. We've talked about using, hypnosis, your own metaphors. So let me read this. I didn't even write down who wrote this post, so my apologies for not crediting the person. But here's what he wrote. First time self-hypnosis. Hi all, I'm new here. I decided to go through the easy self-hypnosis course first, because there's many. And I had my first opportunity to try it out tonight. I had a very stressful afternoon and had an important engagement in the evening that I really wanted to be fully present for. So with the limited time I had, I did my first self-hypnosis for 10 minutes to release the tension and anxiety I was feeling so that I could be more alert and present in the evening. I used the method of attaching colors to the anxiety and to peaceful well-being and letting the well-being transform the anxiety, and it was awesome. And not only did I emerge feeling energized and peaceful, but there was an unintended result too. I've had achy joints for the last few days, which is a problem that comes and goes for me. But when I awoke from trance, the aches were gone too. And now I'm thinking the achy joints might be anxiety related. Anyway, I'm very happy with how it all went, and I'm excited to keep exploring. So nice, tight.
Isn't it great? Just a tight little thing of how I've used self-hypnosis, just got into it, and is immediately getting excellent results.
And I wanted to bring this up because, well, you should all be joining the Brain Software Syndicate. That's obvious. But no, I thought it was kind of cool because this is somebody doing it for the first time, getting a measurable result on the intended outcome, the anxiety. But then
and a peripheral result.
Also going, gee, maybe my achy joints were a physical manifestation of the anxiety and the stress. So what do you think about all this?
Well, it's very often the case. It's a secondary gain that one does not plan upon. You know, if you give up robbing banks, you find you also get the gain that police don't fire bullets at you anymore.
Right.
There's many ways of looking at
it. So there's a circumlocutory way of describing the fact that there's all kinds of effects in the body from emotions that are physical. Stress,
of course.
Right.
It was Hans Selye who first wrote on it. And the idea that stress has this deleterious effect on the entire system, the mind-body connection.
Well, again, it can be just makeup because we don't know what the actual cause of it.
We don't do makeup.
It could be something as simple as, if your body feels achy breaky, then you're going to stay on the couch and you're going to watch Netflix instead of going and interacting with those people in that evening activity that you want to be present for. So your anxiety is going to cause you an achy feeling, and that's going to stop you from going out and doing the thing that you're nervous about.
The next thing you're on a freaking scooter because you've stopped walking because it's painful.
Right. And that way you don't have to interact with really anybody in a social setting because, you're too achy. So that, I'm making it up as one example.
No,
right?
but it's a good example.
It's a good one. Yeah.
There's a cascading effect of all of these things. And self-hypnosis is a winner for just making tiny adjustments in your life and getting immense benefits from it. I've started prepping. I didn't even tell you this. We have as we're recording this, we have Architecture of Hypnosis coming up, 5-day intensive in Toronto. And I have to prep for it. It takes a lot of prep, but I also make sure I'm in the best shape I can be in. I stay lean, mean, fast. But I recognize that I'll be sleeping for lunch every day. So I have switched my afternoon nap to the proper time in preparation, and I just turn it into a self-hypnosis session.
Yeah.
So I just go in, lie on my couch. Hopefully the cat shows up, which is great, and put on some rainfall or some waves, and I go into trance for 25 minutes. I set a timer for 30 in case, but I don't want to go into a deep sleep. I just want to trance. So
you don't want to start a full sleep
I find myself opening my eyes and go, that worked really well.
Yeah.
And that's self-hypnosis to power nap.
So there's a clear benefit to using self-hypnosis. Here's the thing. So I should have said this earlier, we have a free self-hypnosis. It's not really self-hypnosis, it's you guiding them into hypnosis. But since all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, you're using Mike's voice and story to guide you, yourself, guiding yourself into self-hypnosis. Brought to you by the Redundancy Department of Redundancy.
Department of Redundancy Department.
Right. Anyway, Journey to the Castle is totally free. And actually, we've been getting like 1,000 people a week downloading this.
Oh, no, we should be charging.
And a lot of people are emailing us and saying stuff like, wow, that was phenomenal, but I think I fell asleep. And then they wake up at the end and feel amazing and like are almost crying tears of joy. It's like, newsflash, you weren't actually asleep, you were in trance. Or I don't remember parts of it. Well, you could have fallen asleep if you were lying down, or you were in trance, and it's designed that way. We
don't need a voice at the end saying, zip up your flies, sailor, you're awake again.
Anyway, but then also some other people will say, like, I listened to it, I kind of zoned out, but I don't know if anything happened.
Yeah, well, what do you think the zone out was? Yeah.
When
you have amnesia.
So they're not sure because they didn't go in. Like I would say, well, what intention did you set when you went into it? And they'll say, well, I just decided to let my unconscious decide, as Mike suggested.
Right.
Okay, well, it might take you a little while to become conscious of whatever did shift then. You might want to practice it more often and go from using something like Journey to the Castle. I'll give you the URL in a moment. So you'll keep listening because it's free and it's awesome. And like I said, social proof, because 1,000 other people every week are downloading this and getting an amazing result. So you might want to do the same thing.
I still use it.
Yeah, I still do too. I love it. And it's about 45 minutes long. So you do need to give yourself that 45-minute stretch. But the bottom line here is there's so many ways you can do self-hypnosis. So if you were in the Brain Software Syndicate, you get all these tracks that we've given you. You can listen to them. Then you can use things like the Easy Self-Hypnosis course to learn how to do hypnosis on yourself with no props or soundtracks or anything, and you'll just go into trance. And if you start doing that, you get better at it. In fact, Anthony Jacquin often tells us, by doing it more often, you get better. And you don't start your very first time thinking like, I wonder if I can make my hands start floating in the air. You might start with just something simple as, I wonder which finger will twitch. That's weird. It just did.
It just did.
Yeah. So anyway, there's your advice on self-hypnosis. I'm going to give you the URL now, and Mike is going to do his best not to interrupt me while I'm doing it. It is MikeMandel.com/castle. That's a silent T in castle, right? CASTLE. If you're not into spelling.
Our audience understands.
If you're not into spelling, there you go. So get Journey to the Castle. Check it out. Listen to it. Drop us a comment in this video and let us know how awesome it was for you. And I think it's about time for
Give us the empowering question, Chris.
And then it's time for a MetaFive.
MetaFive.
All right, so empowering question. If someone asks the Brothers Grimm to write a story about you, would it be all the triumph of a 3-ring circus or nothing but old crutches and broken mirrors and Eddard?
Brilliant.
That's right.
And on that note, I'll give you the MetaFive, which is better than a metaphor, one better. This is called dentophobia and Dr. Kerr. It's actually odontophobia is the proper term. I just put it like this. But as you know, I had horrendous dental experiences as a kid. I wound up in Michael Garron Hospital before it was called Michael Garron, when it was Toronto East General. I had teeth ripped out of my gums by Dr. Roach. The bleeding didn't stop. I remember drinking hot chocolate with all blood in it. They rushed me to the hospital to my blood pressure. Terrifying experience. And that cemented the fear of having anybody touch these British teeth. Well, I had so many teeth drilled. Dr. Roach would drill $3 for a filling, $5 for an extraction. The fillings were done without anesthetic in secondary molars. You'd have to squeeze the nurse's hands, one on each side. I'd be catatonic with my feet in the air. Terrible experiences. Teeth pulled out with nitrous oxide, which made me vomit after. I mean, just bad experiences. But here's the thing. I got terrified of the dentist because of that, and rightly so. And guess what happened, though? The John Grinder thing proved true. I never ran a phobia cure on this at all. I never dealt with the anxiety. I started having really good experiences at the dentist because I went to my wife's dentist, who she'd been going to since she was 3. Dr. John
And he wasn't
Kerr,
a dick.
He was an excellent dentist. And it wasn't all the tanks of nitrous oxide in front and all the tools. Everything's hidden now. And I had so many good experiences with him. Look at you, all ready to do your freaking commercial.
No.
I had so many good experiences, it overwrote the bad ones.
Collapsed the old ones without you doing anything.
And I'm scheduled for an extraction of a front tooth on June the 4th, my late father's birthday. Zero fear, I could probably do it myself.
In fact, you're looking forward to it, aren't you?
I am. Thanks again.
And good night.
So what can I do?
That'd be better than wiping your ass and flossing your teeth.
Oh man, you could do both.
Yeah, that would be horrible. Hey, what?
Oh, this stuff really comes out.
Hold on. Okay, wow. Yeah. All right, now try not to kick the camera over this time. Oh, it's scary. I think it was Mike Mandel. All right. And if we can get Mike to come back on, we can close out the podcast with a little bit of metaphor and fun. Uh-oh.
Well, it comes out.
If you guys would stop wrecking all the equipment